After receiving 3, 4, 5 reports of this type and seeing what was happening in March in other towns like Foča, Belina, and later Zvornik, I came to the conclusion that these were not isolated incidents committed by a group of crazed paramilitary radicals, but that they were part of a well-planned system which always followed the same logic and the same strategy.
Following the untrue and biased interpretations of the events and situation in Zvornik, the Federal Ministry for National Defense Information issued this statement. Muslim and fascist Croat paramilitary units initiated armed clashes in the Zvornik region and cut off communication between Serbia and Bosnia-Herzegovina. The Yugoslav People's Army and the territorial defense units entered Zvornik, pushed these Muslim paramilitary groups out of town, re-established order, and restored communications.
The state-controlled media played the role of heavy artillery, softening the terrain and preparing for the arrival of the infantry, which were the paramilitary groups.
Ko to kaže, ko to laže, Srbija je mala. Ko to kaže, ko to laže, Srbija je mala.
The Vučković brothers were the lowest in a chain of command, small soldiers in a large scheme. The past 2 years, my colleagues and I have tried to discover who was pulling the strings and from where. When the Vučković brothers were arrested, we were told that they were members of the Serbian Radical Party, an extreme nationalist organization. The only 2 people accused of war crimes are the Vučković brothers, and it is said that they were members of your party. They were charged because of what happened in Zvornik.
No, they were never members of the Serbian Radical Party. In 1993, the government tried to present them as such, but even during their trial, they denied it. The commander was our volunteer in 1991 during the war with Croatia, but we threw him out for looting.
Here is my interpretation of the situation. The little fish who was just doing his job is taking the fall for the big fish.
In the case of Vojin Vučković and his brother Dušan Vučković, I have to say that this trial has political connotations, both for the Yugoslav government as well as for other people outside the country. So this trial has 2 aspects, a criminal aspect and a political aspect. Which one will dominate and what will happen has yet to be seen.
Se poslužili ljudima da manipulišu radi ostvarenja političkih ciljeva protiv Jugoslavije, biti kažnjeni i biti uhapšeni. U ime rukovodstva Socijalističke Republike Srbije, ja vam to garantujem.
Yesterday you said on television that Milosovic was the one who supplied the weapons to your men, that he participated actively in all of this, and then just turned his back on you.
Yes, that's a fact. In 1991 and 92, Milosovic was a leading nationalist and a patriot. At that time, we had very close cooperation. When 30,000 paramilitary volunteers were sent to the front where Serbian people had to fight, he was the one who supplied the arms, the ammunition, the clothes, and the food. He provided the transportation, he allowed the use of military facilities, and so on and so on.
Every time I had a chance to talk with President Milosovic and the subject of ethnic cleansing in Bosnia came up, I told him that we knew very well what was happening and that I was an eyewitness to what had happened in Zvornik.
Serbs from Serbia, irregulars, really criminals, people who had been pulled out of the jails and out of the dives and bordellos of Serbia to go and fight in Croatia. They were then brought back and sent across the Drina, supplied with plenty of alcohol, sent across the Drina and told to kill Muslims. I went in to complain to Milosevic about this, and he made the unbelievable assertion that no Serbs from Serbia were involved in Bosnia.
When I was in Zvornik, the artillery fire that hit Zvornik came from the Serb side. And I told him that I knew that Bosnian forces could not operate on Serbian soil. We didn't talk much. He knew that I knew.
I had seen on television Arkan, who was the worst of these criminals. Arkan had gone across the Drina at the head of these Serbian irregulars, and it was photographed.
I'm protecting the Serbian people from...
So I said to Milosevic, I had seen Arkan on television, so that refuted what he was saying about no Serbs being in Bosnia. And without batting an eyelash, he said, you know, Mr. Zimmerman, he said, you shouldn't believe everything you see on television.
What was happening was that the international community, the European community, didn't want to hear, didn't want to know. I not only reported the details of what happened, the thousands of refugees I encountered who left Zvornik, who were terrified. There were many wounded women and children, mothers with babies in their arms. I also reported that there was artillery fire coming from the Serb side of the Drina River. The shelling was aimed straight at the huge column of refugees to disperse and chase away the survivors of the massacre in Zvornik. I reported all of that. What then was the problem with the Security Council? I learned that throughout the conflict, the reports that arrived at the United Nations Secretariat in New York were not passed on to members of the Security Council. That is to say, to the ambassadors of the member states. In certain cases, some reports were passed on, but only as summaries. There was a sort of desire, quite ridiculous, to maintain neutrality. But maybe, unwittingly, it made us accomplices.
Dusan Vuskovic, locked behind bars and inaccessible to the media for the past 2 years, is but one of many thousands of foot soldiers in this dirty war. Now, when I look again and again at this photograph, I realize how little we know about him. Only his victims are left to fill in the picture.
This is me, Ahmet Isic. This is the photograph from when we were arrested near Zvornik. And this is Dusan, Ponytail, from a village near Belgrade. It is impossible to find anyone else who lived through this. You won't find one man in 5,000 who witnessed it and survived. Someone like me, who lost his sister, his wife, and his son, who survived a concentration camp and suffered so many atrocities. I was slashed so many times, more than you can see in this picture. I would have bled to death, but when they loaded us on trucks, I fell on a tent, which stopped my bleeding.
I was only in Zvornik for a few days. At the time,